From the year 1800, the United States of America was still a young nation, trying to define its identity, expand its land, and strengthen its government. At the beginning of the 19th century, most Americans lived in rural areas and worked in agriculture. Thomas Jefferson became president in 1801 and believed strongly in democracy, individual freedom, and farming as the backbone of the nation. One of the most important events of this period was the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, when the United States bought a vast amount of land from France, doubling the country's size and opening the door for westward expansion. As Americans moved west, Native American tribes were forced off their ancestral lands through unfair treaties, violence, and government policies like the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Thousands of Native Americans suffered and died during forced relocations such as the Trail of Tears. At the same time, the nation was becoming more divided over the issue of slavery. Southern states depended on enslaved labor for their agricultural economy, while northern states were becoming more industrialized and opposed slavery. By the mid-1800s, tensions between the North and South reached a breaking point. In 1861, the American Civil War began after Southern states seceded from the Union to protect slavery. The war was the deadliest conflict in American history. President Abraham Lincoln led the Union and issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, declaring freedom for enslaved people in Confederate states. The war ended in 1865 with the defeat of the Confederacy, the preservation of the Union, and the abolition of slavery through the 13th Amendment. After the Civil War, the country entered a difficult period called Reconstruction. The government attempted to rebuild the South and integrate formerly enslaved people into society as equal citizens. Amendments were passed, granting citizenship and voting rights to Black Americans. But racism, segregation, and violence continued. Groups like the Ku Klux Klan used terror to suppress Black political power, and discriminatory laws, known as Jim Crow laws, enforced racial segregation for decades. In the late 19th century, America experienced rapid industrial growth. Railroads expanded across the country. Factories grew, and cities became crowded with workers. Millions of immigrants arrived from Europe seeking jobs and a better life. While industrialization created wealth, it also led to poor working conditions, child labor, and extreme inequality. Labor unions formed to fight for workers' rights, and strikes became common. By the early 1900s, the Progressive Era began, focusing on reforming government, improving working conditions, and reducing corruption. Leaders like Theodore Roosevelt pushed for regulation of big businesses and protection of natural resources. During this time, women fought for the right to vote, and in 1920, the 19th Amendment granted women's suffrage nationwide. The 1920s were a time of economic growth, cultural change, and technological advancement, but also deep inequality. In 1929, the stock market crashed, triggering the Great Depression. Millions lost jobs, homes, and savings. President Franklin D. Roosevelt introduced the New Deal, a series of programs designed to provide relief, recovery, and reform. These programs expanded the role of the federal government in American life. In 1941, the United States entered World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan. The war transformed America into a global superpower. Millions served in the military, women entered factories in large numbers, and the economy boomed. However, the war also revealed injustice, such as the internment of Japanese Americans. The war ended in 1945 with the U.S. dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, leading to Japan's surrender. After World War II, America entered the Cold War, a long period of tension with the Soviet Union. Though the two nations never fought directly, they competed for global influence, engaged in an arms race, and fought proxy wars such as the Korean War and the Vietnam War. Fear of communism at home led to political repression during the McCarthy era. The 1950s and 1960s were marked by the civil rights movement. African Americans fought to end segregation and gain equal rights. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. used nonviolent protests to challenge injustice. Major victories included the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Despite progress, racial inequality continued. The Vietnam War deeply divided the nation, leading to massive protests and a loss of trust in government. In the 1970s, the Watergate scandal further damaged public confidence when President Richard Nixon resigned after being implicated in illegal activities. During this time, movements for women's rights, environmental protection, and individual freedom gained strength. In the 1980s, America experienced economic changes under President Ronald Reagan, including tax cuts and reduced government regulation. The Cold War ended in the early 1990s with the collapse of the Soviet Union, leaving the United States as the world's leading superpower. Advances in technology, especially computers and the internet, began transforming daily life. By the year 2000, America had become a highly diverse, globalized, and technologically advanced nation. While it faced challenges such as inequality, political division, and social change, the United States had grown from a small republic into one of the most powerful and influential countries in the world.